Good morning. Welcome to Mindset, Heartset, Reset. For those of you that are on YouTube Live or Facebook Live or here right on Humanity Stream, welcome to the show today. We're so excited to have you with us. For those of you that are new to the show, Mindset, Heartset, Reset is a very dynamic live weekly show that provokes introspection. We cultivate compassion and we really spark positive change in your own life and all over the world. Through our insightful discussions, we're going to give you practical tools combined with real authentic stories that's going to empower your own mindset. You're going to create a new open heart that's going to create connections in your own life and give you the courage to hit the reset button in your own life. Our mission is simple. We're here to expand love at a global scale with the vision to shift humanity's future into one which we can all thrive. So welcome to the show today. I'm excited to introduce my co-host, Dr. Roshanak Hashimoon. Welcome to the show today. Dr. Roshanak, my beautiful co-host, is a credentialed computational, I can't even get that word out, clinical and behavioral neuroscientist. So really, she's just really smart and brilliant. She's worked to transform countless lives all over the world. She's the founder of her own conscious business, Access to the Path. She combines the power of process and science with emotional and spiritual intelligence to help businesses and individuals use innovative strategies that will make you more purposeful, effective, and prosperous. Dr. Roshanak, welcome to the show this morning, my love.
Thank you. Oh, wait, hold on.
Wait.
I thought I was muted again. Hi.
Good. Good morning.
I'm like the queen of speaking into a muted microphone, people.
There you go. You're good. I would have been like, hello.
Right? Hello, everybody. Welcome to Mindset, Heartset, Reset. We're so excited to have you join us. It's just such a pleasure that we have the opportunity to have this amazing show. We love having you here with us live. And if you're here with us recorded, we're happy to have you join us no matter what. We are this month continuing on with our Conscious Business series. We're so excited to bring this. I think it's something that is so important to really get into and understand more as the number of entrepreneurs and solopreneurs and people who have side hustles and other businesses increases. The importance of the time that we're spending at work and the time that we're spending at home working is really starting to bring this personal and professional self, our personal and professional selves together more. And so as we look to see what are we doing now to improve our lives, because of course, that's why so many of us are working from home and creating businesses and so on. We want to have better lives and we want to have better futures for ourselves and our families. And so this episode in particular is going to address a lot of that. So welcome, everybody. We're doing our Conscious Business series. As I said, this is really at the intersection of our personal fulfillment and our professional excellence and how we really want to represent ourselves now in our businesses authentically and with integrity, and how that can create a sustainable future for us. So we are talking today about the future of investing in consciousness with the wonderful Gordy Bal. I'll introduce him to you a little bit more in a moment. The show today is really about how we're noticing, and we just had the solar eclipse. And so many questions and reflections are going on right now. And we're noticing that our world, as we speak really literally physically to our earth, our world now is so different than the world that we want. And every day the divide between the two is getting greater and greater. And here is where we have the opportunity for business and for entrepreneurs to come in and bridge that divide. But to bridge that divide, we really need to wake up to what our definitions of success are, the ways that we invest our resources, being present to our purpose and expressing that purpose out into the world, into our businesses, rather than creating another mousetrap, and paying attention to our intentions versus just objective goals that we're getting from stories that are handed down to us and narratives that tell us this is how we should go. So we want to create lives of greater fulfillment and achievement and create businesses that are purposeful and authentic and a future that is beautiful and sustainable. So with that, I would like to introduce to you our amazing guest, Gordy Bal. Let me read a little bit about him for you. Gordy's amazing. So, Gordy Bal is a heart centered entrepreneur. He is an impact investor and a visionary leader. He's the author of the New Millionaire's Playbook and the founder of Conscious Thought Revolution. We are working also with Humanity's team with Gordy, so we're super excited to have him join us. CTR, the Conscious Thought Revolution, consists of venture capital fund and a world-class marketing agency which invests in entrepreneurs and organizations committed to bettering humanity. Through these organizations, Gordy has spearheaded the transformation of early startups into billion-dollar powerhouses. Gordy is now a sought-after advisor, speaker, mentor, and coach to entrepreneurs and investors. He is passionate about supporting aligned leaders in generating true abundance by stepping into their purpose and making a meaningful impact. Harnessing this commitment, Gordy has dedicated himself to creating a world where business, finance, and human consciousness seamlessly coexist. Welcome, Gordy. So happy to have you with
us. Delighted to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. So moving forward with what we're talking about today, we want to get into some back and forth with Gordy and Jacqueline and myself. We have an open chat. So if you have questions, then by all means, please put them in the chat and we will share them with Gordy. Jacqueline, I know you have the first question, so I'm coming over to you.
Well, we want to start right from the very beginning because not everyone is familiar with what this new conscious business movement is. So, Gordy, can you, from your own perspective and experience, which is pretty profound, can you share with everybody what is conscious business?
Yeah.
Let's start from the beginning. We're going to start right from the beginning.
All right. We like to get the foundation laid out so everybody starts off on the same page.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's been quite a journey being an entrepreneur since I was a child and really seeing business as a tool and my own evolution inside of business. Growing up to immigrant parents, I thought that business would be a way to, make a lot of money. And I thought that's what business is for. And so early on, I achieved that definition of success by launching multiple businesses because I was a child of the internet. But when I kind of reached that mountain of figuring out how to, make a lot of money, I realized that I wasn't actually fulfilled. I wasn't really happy. And there wasn't a depth of my true experience as a human. And so that took me on a deeper journey of like, why am I really here? What is the nature of reality? What is the point of it all? And I think through that process is what I started discovering that, there is an opportunity for business or entrepreneurs who I think are modern day superheroes to actually use business and entrepreneurship as a catalyst for real meaningful change, and not just creating a new, mousetrap or a new product just because it'll, generate profit, but actually innovate solutions to the problems that we face as a humanity. And so what I've discovered is that also has a lot to do with the founder's own vision and sense of purpose, because the byproduct of discovering one's own purpose is a manifestation of a conscious business. It's a business that is informed by a higher aspect of the entrepreneur's own consciousness. And so when that happens, all of a sudden, businesses that are being formed are much more in alignment with a higher purpose. And when I find that when I'm able to support an entrepreneur and founder in their own journey of being more conscious and aware, their teams are happier, the bottom line is better, they're making more money, they're generating more abundance, and everybody's rallied around a deeper purpose. It's not just business for business anymore. It's business for real impact. And so I'd say that's what conscious business is. It's a manifestation of one's own higher state of consciousness that gets to be deployed through the use of this thing we call business.
I love that you said that, because I think that's such an important part for everyone that they need to remember, is that it really starts with us as an individual. It doesn't start that, oh, I'm going to do my business and all of a sudden, we're going to plant some trees. We were talking about this before the show. We're going to plant some trees and all of a sudden you have a conscious business, right? It doesn't work that way. That this is really your own personal journey first. And I love that you talked about finding your own purpose, because I think, as we know with self-help books, it's a billion-dollar industry when people are talking about going out and finding your purpose and what that is. And when you can connect to that fully consciously yourself and then take that out to the world, it's a beautiful opportunity. And we've seen, obviously, you're doing that, and Dr. Oshanak does that. I do that with my own charitable organization too. And then you get to see that flourish. So it's beautiful. You use a word or a couple of words that I love, and you talk about investing in consciousness. What does investing in consciousness actually mean as well? Can you share a little bit more about how we invest? Like, do I need to go take my money out of the bank and where do I put this? How do I invest in consciousness?
Yeah. Okay. This is a rabbit hole. So shall we go down?
Let's go. We like rabbit holes.
We love rabbit holes.
There's dimensionality to this. So the first, what we just touched upon is starting, with the journey within. And so there's a way to invest in consciousness, which is, and this is what CTR and conscious thought revolution represents, is our thoughts are the most powerful currency we have to invest. And according to a study from Stanford a few years ago, we have between 40 and 60 thoughts per day. And so if you extrapolate that over the course of around
60,000, I think you wanted to say.
Yeah, what did I say?
60.
40 to 60. Yeah, we're all going,
You're so zen. You manage those, right?
Yeah. I did that in the first 5 minutes that I was up this morning.
Yeah. 40 to 60,000 thoughts a day are being had. And over the course, so that it takes over the course of about 17 or 18 days, you've actually invested 1 million thoughts. And so one can ask, what was the ROI on my 1 million thoughts I just invested? And where can I invest my next 1 million thoughts? So there's an opportunity to invest in your own consciousness through understanding the frequency and the value of your own thoughts, it's like I always talk about, imagine if you had a Fitbit for your thoughts. What if you were able to measure the quality of your thoughts and have real-time feedback? All of a sudden, you'd be able to upgrade your consciousness. So that's one whole dimension around how to invest, or what investing in consciousness means. Now, in a more traditional sense, like what you talked about is should I take my money out of the bank or whatever? As someone who's now, I play the entrepreneur game, and now for the last bunch of years, I became a venture capital investor with the thesis to invest in companies that are measurably raising human consciousness. So when I'm looking for entrepreneurs and technologies, I'm actually looking at solutions that are helping elevate global levels of human consciousness, because our thesis is that if we invest in accelerating the evolution of human consciousness, then we actually will be able to solve problems with a new state of consciousness versus solving problems from the previous state of consciousness, which is what caused the problems that we face as a species today anyway. And so, and then I always talk about there's this whole backdrop that we're in the midst of right now, where there's over $70 trillion moving hands in the largest wealth transfer in human history, from the boomer generation to millennials and Gen Z. And these generations have a different set of values. And so I don't know if the term consciousness is at the forefront of their awareness yet, but they are looking for things that are more regenerative. They're aware that we need to invest in mental health, emotional health, physical health, spiritual health. And these 4 vectors are indicative of a higher state of consciousness, because if you're able to operate from a higher state of consciousness, you have better mental health, you have better emotional health, you have better physical health, and you are more spiritually connected. So that's how I'm looking at investing in consciousness. And that's what our fund has done. We've been looking for companies that are really improving these areas: mental, emotional, physical, spiritual well-being, because these are kind of the KPIs that are indicative of moving the needle real in human consciousness.
I love it.
Okay, we can go now.
Can I jump in there?
I love it.
You're in
I
my
love
hut
it.
now.
Oh yeah, look out, look out. Okay, she's all yours.
All right. So, Gordy, as you know, this is very near and dear to my heart. First of all, as a neuroscientist who is deeply interested in the workings of the brain versus the mind, and as someone, my work and access to the path is in human optimization. And so that means with individuals and businesses. Lots of questions here. The first thing is, as we talk about improve, and so I've been talking about a mental health crisis for over 10 years, professionally as a clinical neuroscientist. And there's been so much more awareness as the global mental health crisis, which we were discussing professionally, became exacerbated by the pandemic, which nobody expected. And now younger and younger people are getting affected. Parents are concerned, friends are concerned, everybody is concerned. What is happening? So this investment that you're talking about, especially when it comes to Gen Z, if we're going to use that, they are much more aware and they are paying attention and they are shopping with their hearts and with their heads. In other words, they're investing their time and their resources consciously. That means intentionally. So let's talk about intentions. There's this sort of, has been classically, historically, this sort of narrative that he who dies with the most toys wins. And that's really been sort of passed on, especially in this male dominant way of, I need to have a lot of money, and then I'll have the wife, I'll have the spouse, the house, the friends, the toys, I'm on social media and I'm balling and all that good stuff, right? Or I've got the red soled shoes, etc. And people reach for that golden ring only to find out it's like tin. And this, you've written the Millionaire's Playbook. We think, or we're told, and we don't think about it, as long as I get to there and there's all this financial wealth, I'll be okay. In fact, I'll be great. I'll be happy. I'll be fulfilled. And that is what success is. Could you help us to understand what the new definition of success requires to remove? Because, we're always adding things. What do we need to remove? What dangerous misconception needs to change in order for us to reach living in that higher consciousness personally and professionally that improves our mental health, our spiritual health, our physical health, our emotional health, all the wellness parameters, in fact, which are connected to each other. Can you speak to that? That's where I'm starting.
That's a really great exploration. I think, and I talk a lot about this in my book as well, is, there's this distinction of the old world and the new world, and the new world is emerging and we are getting to co-create it together, which is beautiful. Even this conversation is a co-creation of the new world where the future is pressing into the present. And, the distinction I talk about is that in the old world, the success metric, or the currency of success was dollars. And like you said, toys. The more you accumulated or hoarded, that was considered to be successful. And what I'm posing is that the new currency of success is impact. And the way to measure success is to the degree of impact you're able to make to yourself, to your community, to your family, and to the world at large. And where that starts is to connect deeply to your soul and understand its unique purpose that's here. Why are you really, truly here? What is this human iteration for that you chose to come and wear this meat suit to be? It's and I think when you're able to tap into your true soul purpose, that whole process of connecting to your soul requires a higher state of consciousness. It requires working through your mental garbage, your emotional fluidity, and working through stuck, backlogged emotions. It requires you to tackle physical health and look at how you're treating that vessel that you chose to be in. And really, it requires a deeper connection to the spirit that you are, the soul that you are. And so when you do that work, you are elevating your own consciousness. And when you're doing that, you now begin to live from a place where you see we are all interconnected. We are not separate from each other, nor are we separate from nature. We are all that which is. And so from that place, now you are oriented to make an impact. And when you have a deeper purpose and you live by that purpose and you're making a true impact, then that's the new definition of success. Because what I've found, and this is what I'm finding more and more when we're looking at companies to invest in, founders that have a real mission, not just a business idea, but a true mission that's driving them from their soul essence, they are able to generate abundance. They're like the money follows them instead of them following the money. Like, you don't have to chase money anymore. Money will chase you, because the new money that through this wealth transfer, it's looking for a home for where purpose can be expressed, impact can be expressed. So I say that's the big distinction from the old world, where the currency of success was just money and toys, whereas the new currency of success is impact.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Humanity's team is helping in every way with this higher consciousness. And the idea that what issues forth, that you just so beautifully explained, is that what issues forth from us, right? So we've classically separated personal from business or personal from professional, but you take yourself wherever you go. And so let's talk about spiritual intelligence and emotional intelligence, right? So there's IQ, right? Intelligence quotient. And then there's the idea of general intelligence. And then, there are schools of thought that allow for sort of aspects of intelligence. And one of them is emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is this understanding of what's happening within us emotionally, and then being able to manage or regulate that. And once we recognize and are able to regulate ourselves, then we can recognize emotions in others and help to regulate them. And Jacqueline and I talked about this in our episode a couple of weeks ago on happiness, where we talked about what that is, specifically about being able to, recognize those emotions within us, those feelings and those bodily sensations. And then spiritual intelligence comes along. And spiritual intelligence is connecting to those sort of higher aspects of ourselves, where a spiritual practice, for example, and here's where it can connect to emotional intelligence, is meditation, right? We think of meditation as a spiritual practice, but meditation actually changes, and here's my neuroscience hat coming on, it changes the structure and function of the brain. In fact, it can functionally reorganize the brain, as it were, and give us that sensation of greater oneness. And we often feel that when we go into awe, when we see something that is incredible. You're standing at the Grand Canyon, you're listening to a child's laughter, you're watching a sunrise or a sunset. And that takes us out of this, stuck within this unconscious self. And now we connect to something greater than ourselves. So, for example, when we meditate, if we become dispositionally mindful, we can have that sensation of greater unity and oneness, that feeling. And also we change, as I said, the structure and function of the brain, so that when we are, as a leader in a challenging situation, it's not that we no longer feel our feelings, it's that we are no longer dysregulated by them. So in fact, we're conscious of our feelings, but we're also, because remember, emotional intelligence is then being able to recognize feelings in others, because we know how to recognize them in ourselves. So we now can lead better because we are connected to everyone else around us, not lost in our own reaction to how someone might be working with us, how they might be having a difficult time, what might be triggering them. And so we know from resting state brain dynamics that they reliably predict how we will react or respond to these what are known as affective stimuli, things that might affect us. So that would give us these strong emotional states. When we're talking about higher consciousness, we need to learn a little bit about the kinds of things that I just explained, because very often, people might hear, oh, meditate, and they go, well, it's me being woo-woo. It doesn't really do anything. Or some people are like, oh, that just means that I'm separated from other people more and I want to be more connected. But really, it's about being able to harness the knowledge that science gives us and connect that to our knowing, the truth that comes from us, from the within, from that inspiration. When you work with people and companies coming into higher consciousness, tell us, what are some of the ways that you recognize these hallmarks? What are the hallmarks of companies or organizations like Humanity's Team that show us that they are in fact working at a different level and can be leaders in this field of conscious business?
Yeah. I'd say one of the first things that I begin to notice whenever I'm talking to a founder that's looking to raise money, I'm noticing and hearing through underneath the surface of how the sort of the metacognitive narrative that's going on for them. And what I mean by that is, like, I'm seeing how they think about their thinking and how that's coming through their language. So if I'm hearing an entrepreneur that's still occupying language in victim mode or victim mentality, where, like, they're a victim of their reality, then I know that they're still in a state of consciousness where they haven't really excavated some of their own shadow or some of their own unconsciousness to see that they're creating a reality that's not in their best interest and that's not empowering them. So so there's the whole victim, or even if it's like blaming, if it's a lot of like, well, this investor didn't do this for me, or my team didn't perform at this level, or so they're diffusing responsibility and putting it outward versus taking radical responsibility and owning their own stuff. And so from a leadership perspective, I'm always looking to see how much is somebody willing to own their own shit, because when they're able to do that, that sets the stage. It sets a good model and leadership dynamic for the rest of the team as well, because now you create a container inside of an organization where you can have the tough conversations. And so if you create I look at a company as a container, and I look at the strength of the container by how much the team is able to have tough conversations and feel safe and supported to actually do their own personal growth within that company and container. And that stems from the leader. So if the leader is in a lower vibrational state, and you're able to pick that up through some initial conversations, you can tell right away that the team is also it's like hot potato, but it's like for blame. It's like they're passing the potato because nobody wants to take blame or somebody else's fault. And so these are both like signs of how a company is operating with the company state of consciousness. But it's also exciting because I can see where I could come in and help and support and help create a container. And that's why I would like working with sort of at the founder level, because, if they're deeply committed to build and create something, I feel like if we can help them harness that commitment to themselves and their own self-awareness, then all of a sudden it's a massive unlock, and they'll have a quantum leap, and their business will have a quantum leap because of that quantum leap they're able to take for themselves. So those are some of the things that I'm looking for when I'm meeting teams or working with founders, or even looking at investing. Like, before making an investment decision, that's the thing I'm looking at. I'm like, is this founder going to be willing to do their own work? Is this founder going to be willing to go into the deep, dark corners of their own psyche to heal and integrate, so that their business will have that same level of transformation that they're willing to have? If they are, I get excited. And then I'm looking for, like, are they using biometric biometric feedback? Are they using technology to measure their own mental, emotional, physical states? Because if they are, I see those as Trojan horses, because if they're already geeking out on some of these things, then I'm like, okay, they're already looking for metrics to help optimize them. Maybe they just haven't looked at optimizing their, thoughts or their consciousness. So those are some of the things that I'm looking for.
And do you find that there are people with good intentions, but they just kind of need a little bit of, are you seeing more of that now, that people are meaning well, but maybe they're not quite on the right track, and that's where you come in?
Absolutely. Well, yes, that last poem,
That was a
hits
good breath.
hard. That hits home hard, because what comes up for me is I see so often these beautiful founders who are looking to really do something meaningful, but they are also subjected to the world of the current capitalist system, which is an extractive model, which is, and even venture capital. Like, when I look at how these founders are treated by some of these venture capital funds, it makes me sad, because they're being squeezed. They're just being seen as a source of value, and they're being squeezed to get as much value for, shareholders of venture capital funds, or just shareholders in general. And so this brings sort of a more systemic issue to awareness, which is like the current, extractive capitalist system that we live within is not the one that the new world that we're co-creating is going to thrive in. There's a big transformation that needs to happen there. And again, that all comes down to consciousness. When we're operating from our egoic self and see ourselves as separate, then of course we have to try and get our peace. But when we actually transcend and remember that we are all one, and each one of us are a unique vantage point of one consciousness, and the universe experiencing and expanding itself through us, then we have the opportunity to remember that we're not here to just take from each other, but we're here to actually evolve collectively. And that just changes the game. So I'm excited about what that'll look like. And the other thing I guess I'll share that comes up a lot is, you talked about some of these trends of like mental health and emotional health, and how like people are having a higher EQ now. And sort of what I've discovered is, growing up in like, in business in early 2000s, because the early 2000s was like this massive leap of the internet age. What ended up happening is there was a massive increase of people being sedentary and sitting at their desks all the time. And so the 2000s, that decade, was really about physical health and physical health awareness. So you saw all of these fad diets come on, like the Atkins diet, or Weight Watchers became a big thing. And so that was the decade of 2000s. And then after 2008 and the financial collapse that happened then, that was a time. So the 2010s that decade was really about mental health awareness. So you saw a lot more, public campaigns around mental health. We need to take care of our mental health. And so that was the 2010s decade. And now in the 2020s, especially after the thing they call the pandemic, it is about emotional health and EQ, and really understanding the opportunity to feel our feelings, and not get dysregulated by our feelings, and actually understand that our emotions are one of the ways in which we're able to have a higher state of consciousness, because they are a part of who we are. And so, and then they're not just something to kind of like park to the side or put elsewhere, because then they, if at some point they end up manifesting in some kind of physical distress or an ailment or a dis-ease. And then 2030s, where we're entering now. So there was the physical health awareness, mental health awareness, and now we're in the emotional health awareness. And the 2030s is going to be a spiritual health awareness. And there's going to be a spiritual revolution, because as we converge closer and closer with artificial intelligence, humans will be clamoring and begging to reconnect back to their spirituality. And so we have a solid 5.5-ish years, and we're kind of ahead of the curve. So now is probably a really good time to start connecting to this idea of spiritual health. And I think people like you guys, and I'm so grateful, are actually making that more of a grounded, pragmatic, practical concept rooted in science versus just some woo-woo idea of like, because it's not about dogmatic ideas of like, oh, believe in some random, deity. This is really about, a deeper aspect of oneself. And so that's what I'm noticing. And that's what these are some of the currents that I'm paying attention to, both for myself and my own inner work, but also as my work outward, as, whether I'm catalyzing capital for consciousness through venture capital funding, or working with teams or founders and entrepreneurs and helping them discover their purpose.
Amazing. All right, can I hop in, because I
did. Can I just say one thing, because you brought up a really important point, just very briefly, and that is the systemic issue. And Jacqueline and I hosted Sean Claffey back in December during our social justice series, who's the producer and director behind the documentary American. That movie is amazing. And it spoke very much to the systemic changes that have been occurring, in particular in this country, that are leading us into deeper states of unconsciousness. So I just wanted to bring that up, because for anybody who's interested in following up what you said, I highly recommend watching American, because and it's free on YouTube now, I think, because I think ignoring what's going on systemically or structurally is really going to be doing us a disservice as we're moving into these greater states of connecting to our value and our meaning and our purpose, but then the system is rigged. And so I think that's a really important point that you brought up, Gordy. Thank you so much for that. Jacqueline.
Well, Gordy, you talked about AI a minute ago, and we wanted to really start to grasp that topic. And just before we do, we've talked a lot about purpose and starting with ourselves and then continuing it through to our business. But I want to talk about a topic that's going to lead us into AI, and that's algorithms. And, you had talked a lot about the fact that your business started with technology before you've moved into where you are now. And that's where it originated from. How is your feeling, or talk to us about the algorithms in our own life that we can create? So this is really tied into both the technology, but our personal state of being as well. So, if you went on to your Instagram feed right now, or TikTok, or any of the other feeds that we all carry around, what we know about our phones, these beautiful little devices that we all carry around, is they listen to us, they hear our conversations, they literally, for some people, follow your heart rate, right? I mean, depending on the apps that you have downloaded. I love that you mentioned earlier, for the people that are tapping into their biorhythms, understanding their heart rate, that's telling them about their state of being, literally. Dr. Roshanak talked about the meditative state, and how that helps us both emotionally, physically, spiritually connect as well. But our algorithms in our life tell us a lot. So when we're looking or using our devices and the tools in our life, how can we start using this to really measure where we are, our own state of being, and then start to discover our own personal algorithm that can start to change, like exactly what you're talking about, help us connect ourselves further? How can we use this as a tool in our life?
Yeah, that's beautiful. And isn't it hilarious that we spend $1,000+ for this tracking device that we're basically giving to the powers that be to track every moment of our life and listen to us
every breath we take, literally.
Every breath we take. It's like, hey, we'll pay. Well, I'm gonna buy this device and then give you all the data. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. But are we using it to our ability, or are we using it to our detriment, right?
That's it.
And how
Yeah,
can
that's
we
it.
look at reframing this for ourselves?
Yeah, and I think the big reframe there is like, these devices and the current algorithms, especially the social media algorithms, are designed to mine our attention in order to sell us stuff that we, in most cases, don't really even need. And so what happens is we get in this loop where our amygdala is hijacked and we are just consuming through this device that has these, highly intelligent algorithms that are designed because they're co-consuming our entire life with us. And because they're co-consuming our entire life with us, and they have quantum computing abilities and have algorithms to understand how to take all of that data to give us what we need in order to sell us stuff, because that's their only, again, back to the success metric for Facebook as an example, or Meta, is dollars made, earnings made. Every quarter they have their quarterly earnings come out because their public stock price needs to be at a certain amount for their shareholders. And the only way they make money is to sell products through their attention mining algorithms. And so I think one of the big reframes is to actually ask the question of, hey, instead of how does technology use us, which in a lot of cases it does, it's like, how can we work symbiotically with technology in a way where we're able to amplify our impact? Because social media doesn't have to be bad or negative. As a matter of fact, it's the largest workforce you have. And so if you're able to connect to it in a way where you're able to proliferate a meaningful message and a way to actually make a positive impact, well, you can start, even conducting surveys on social media. You can begin to connect with people, build community, cultivate community around your mission. So it's and I like, sometimes it's kind of scary. Like if you go by a coffee shop and you're just walking out, and I've seen this so many times, and you see two people talking, if you listen to them, it's actually like two algorithms talking to each other, repeating what they have seen through their social media feeds. And it's scary because it's all, you can see where the inevitability of that is going to be. It's not as genuine of a connection. It's like you hear them reiterating the headlines from their feed, and then them sharing the headline from their feed, and these two algos are talking to each other through humans. It's crazy. And so I think it's like, if we want to make this massive shift, it's like really understanding that we can work with these technologies and these algorithms in a way to actually show us that which we need to see. So for example, if I went into each of your devices right now and I extracted, I looked at the last 10 people you talked to, the last 10 emails, the quality and texture of the conversations you had, the last 10 social media posts you looked at, I could start getting a pretty good idea of, where your heart and your head, time, space is being conveyed. And if I gave that to you on a platter, or in the form of some, say, dashboard, where you're able to look and be like, oh shit,
and monitor it, right?
Yes, exactly. Like,
right?
And so
you could literally go, right? It's
yeah,
like, oh, what was I doing?
Exactly. And we
it's
don't
like
have
a new awareness.
that we don't have that right now. And so I always talk about how social media algorithms currently, they look at our shadow, they extract our shadow, and then they use it against us to basically get us stuck into a loop, and where we are going to buy or engage or consume for their profit. What if instead we were able to use similar algorithms to extract our shadow, but then it shows it to us? And it's like, hey, here's all the areas that you need to work on, you need to look at. Here's how you're operating. Here's the language you're using with this person. You're in a power dynamic with this person. You're not showing up consciously with this person. You haven't talked to your mom in 10 weeks. You have, like, it's like all these things that like are.
Gordy, I see a new business model here.
Right?
right? You, technology, right? This is like a whole app in itself.
Wow. And
right?
I think that's extremely valuable. I'd sign up.
Wouldn't we all? And this is the really, and that's why I really wanted to just have a conversation with you about this, because I think this is such an important part for anyone listening, that, instead of us buying into this. And I brought it up because I had this conversation with somebody 2 days ago where they're like, oh, all the crap on Instagram, whatever it is. And I was sitting listening and I said, but that's
I
not,
have that.
that's not my experience at all with Instagram. Like I actually go to Instagram for inspiration and beautiful posts and things I can share with friends. Dr. Roshanak will know. I'm like all the time sending her like, I love
I'm getting it all the time.
Right? And so it was so interesting for me to have that feedback. And I hear this all the time. It's like, oh my God, all the crap I get on Instagram. And I'm like, yeah, I just don't have that experience. And I really come to realize is that we all have such a different experience. And it's such a beautiful tool that we can use. So even all the people that are here listening today, and Jessica and so many other people, for all of your comments, thank you so much, because this is feeding the algorithm of our conversation as well, and helping to guide us today, is we can use our phones as this beautiful tool to go, hey, how am I showing up? What am I consuming? What am I looking at? What is it? What's the mirror on my feeds showing me about myself? Because if I'm stopping and I'm watching newsreels, war videos, like whatever it is for you, porn, like who knows, but whatever you're doing, it's just coming back to you, right? It's like this feedback loop that we could use as a tool for our own consciousness. And then how do we do that differently for our own businesses when we're looking at, so many entrepreneurs that are out there? How can you then use that as a tool for your own business? What are you going to feed the world? Right? Because if we're all, I know you, Gordy, you're on it, Dr. Roshanak's on it, I'm on it with my charitable organization. What are we then feeding the system? Because I see that as a really huge opportunity for us all to think before I post anything, right? Especially for my business and my company, what am I going to feed the system today? Right. And looking at it from an algorithm of, I'm not just feeding my employees, I'm not just feeding my customers, but what am I feeding the world with the algorithms I'm creating with this footprint that we all forget we're creating with every post, every comment, every like, every heart. We're feeding a system. And I know this is going to take us into a bigger conversation about AI. And Dr. Roshanak, I'll put it back over to you for that. But thank you for getting this going so that we all have that opportunity to really take a look at our own feeds. What are we feeding ourselves in our life, and how we can use that differently.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jacqueline. So speaking of which, hey, Gordy, isn't AI just an extension of our own consciousness?
100%.
Or is it going to be even more, right?
No, it is. It's an extension of currently it's an extension of our unconsciousness.
Exactly.
Right.
So I talk a lot about that too. I think part of what, if you'll notice, even right now in our conversation we just had, even I did it. It's like, hey, either technology or AI is using us, or we need to use it.
Right.
But again, that's creating the separate self. Really, if AI is just an extension of us anyway, then we need to reframe our relationship to it, not as a parasitic one, because a parasitic one is either I use it for my gain or it uses me for its gain, but we need to have a symbiotic relationship to it. How
did we invent it to use it? And that's where it starts, right? And back to intention. When we talk about purpose and consciousness, we really need to be able to connect to our intentions. And I think that goes back to the conversation we were just having, is how many people are really paying attention to what their own truth is and what their intention is with something. So I think you were going to talk about this, but from that perspective of intention and the extension of consciousness, Gordy, tell us about what's going on with us in AI.
Yeah, well, I think what's also exciting is a lot of people in some of these companies, these large AI companies, they are starting to do the work. They're starting to actually get into their own selves, and some of my community members that I've done some deep work with are at some of these big AI companies, and so that gives me some solace in like, okay, like I now know that potentially these algorithms are being more informed with some consciousness and with love and unconditional love. But I still think, like, I come back to the systemic issues of the example is like OpenAI was supposed to be a, open source AI organization for safety standards. And today it's a for-profit organization largely owned by Microsoft. And so, again, like it's now designed to generate profit, which now then that as soon as it's designed to just generate profit, it's at odds with what we're talking about here. So I think these are some of the mechanisms that we're going to need to be looking at soon, like yesterday, if we want to, like, make a dent towards in the new world we want to co-create. Because if I mean, if you can just extrapolate it and abstract it out 10 years, if an eventuality is generalized artificial intelligent beings existing alongside us, and their mainframe is programmed to generate profit, well, at some point that's going to come to odds with our species.
It already has. That's the problem, right? It became a law in the US that it's a fiduciary responsibility of a company to make a profit. So profit over people became a law.
So we got some work to do.
Gordy, can you remind everybody here as well? I think sometimes people think, and I like that you were talking about the fact that, we need to create this symbiotic relationship with AI. And I remember when ChatGPT first came out, and we were having lots of conversations at the time on Clubhouse about it, and how we feed the system. Can you remind everybody, when we talk about AI and people say, oh, I'm scared of it, I don't want to use it, it's a scary feature, who created it and who feeds that system? Because I think sometimes people think like there's some person or something, or I don't want to use the word God, but thing over here, this like mechanical thing that's created this system and is feeding this system.
We haven't
can you clear that up?
Haven't thought this through. Yeah, that speaks to that extension of consciousness, right?
Yeah, I love it. I know sometimes I feel like I sound like a broken record, but it all it all comes back to going in. Everything is a project. The external reality is a projection of our internal reality. There's an ancient Mayan tradition saying, it goes something like "In Lakesh Alaken," which I think the direct translation is "I am another you," which metaphorically really is saying is that, that which is external is just me anyway. So similarly to AI, it's just me. So if I'm afraid, if I'm projecting a fear onto AI, it's actually because I haven't integrated whatever that is inside of myself. So if I'm saying the AI is going to be dangerous, well, wait, I'm dangerous. And maybe I haven't looked at what part of myself that I'm hiding that's dangerous. So I love that you brought that up. And I think
that's collective humanity, right? We look at humanity collectively and we say, because we feel out of control, most people. And, like I can't make a difference. The powers that be, as Jacqueline was saying, they're doing this, and it could be very dangerous because everything else that we've created has become dangerous, and then we do look to some power outside of ourselves, like, why doesn't God come in and fix this? Well, did God come in and mess it up in the first place?
Not really.
Like, we make a mess and then go, but, right? And so,
yeah. And I really wanted people to get that message that it's not some other mechanical or something. AI has been created by humans. We keep feeding it by humans. Whatever we see in AI, it's by humans, right? So I think people forget that everything we generate into it, and I always say this, well, I use ChatGPT for a lot of the work for my charitable organization because it saves us time and a lot of money. And for a charity, it's amazing. But I know that what I'm feeding it is really great, right? Because it's all charity work, right? So I'm like, well, we need to create that balance the same way we do in ourselves, and what you're talking about today, where we need to find that relationship. We can feed it. It's the same way we were just talking about our phones. This is AI technology too, right? Right here. If you have one, you're carrying it, just saying. And so how can we feed that the same way and remember that it's all generated by us, right? And so how do we begin to create that shift in awareness? And that's what I love what you keep saying today is it's that awareness, it's all awareness, right? Whether it's AI technology or the way you run your business or the impact and that human impact that we get to make.
So Gordy, you love med tech and health tech and all that stuff. You love getting the data, and that's us using tech, obviously, and AI more and more. Help us to understand how we can be more responsible, what we can do to improve and use for good what we have created, as opposed to, and how this idea of conscious entrepreneurship and conscious business can lead us into those places and those creations, whether it's specifically creating a tech or whether it's how to use the tech that would be make a positive impact and be for, I'm trying to avoid be for good because we all have different definitions of good, but how would that look for us? How does that tell us, direct us or guide us, or how do we direct or guide it so that it's what we find is in line with our spiritual intelligence, which is connecting to our higher values and purpose, etc.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So here's the question that I have been dancing with. And the question, and this is sort of the group that I'm bringing together, the community of investors and founders that, I really pose this question, and it creates a pause. And the question is, how do we collectively move $1 trillion to measurably raise consciousness by 2030? And so that question itself commands a new kind of collaboration and consciousness in itself, because that's not something that just one person can go off and do. It forces us to rethink systems. And what's happening is, like I talked about, this massive wealth transfer of 70 plus trillion dollars that's underway right now. It's also creating the biggest opportunity for innovation. And so founders and entrepreneurs, and since now we have, infinite access to data, and we have quantum computing now, and we have decentralized ledger technology in the blockchain, we can begin to calculate what was once uncalculatable. And so when it comes to biometric data and health tech and wealth tech, there's a convergence happening where not only do entrepreneurs and founders have the opportunity to build solutions that we've been talking about to help people improve their mental, emotional, physical, spiritual well-being using data, but guess what? What's really exciting is, as people and stewards of capital, we now begin to actually have a real KPI around this notion of impact investing. Because before this, there's a lot of this rhetoric around impact investing, but there hasn't been a clear definition and there hasn't been a clear measurement for it. But I think if we define impact as a measurable uptick in consciousness, and we measure it through mental, emotional, physical, spiritual well-being, we now can actually have a baseline and show that this $1 trillion that we're able to collectively move by 2030 is creating a measurable uptick in human consciousness. So that's, and we get to really come forth and say, this is impact investing. And then watch what happens when these humans we've elevated our consciousness, and we're able to see the lens through which we see and create our reality is altered so much so that we automatically are able to innovate solutions that we weren't even able to see with our previous data consciousness. And so that's what I'm seeing, and that's where the puck is going, using a Canadian analogy of hockey. That's what's getting me excited. And I think the convergence of health tech and wealth tech, where we can actually show that health is wealth, that's really exciting. And that's what I'm seeing. So I'd say if there are any entrepreneurs or founders, especially second time entrepreneurs and founders who are looking for their next thing, I would love to geek out with you on this and see if there's something that can be created and built, because that's where I want to be investing in.
I love that you said that. And when you say it's, basically a measure of human consciousness, but this is a measure of human impact as well. And, I think that, and we talked about this a little while ago, but this concept that we can actually measure human impact differently. And it's not just about the planting of a tree. And, we could all together plant 7 billion trees if we all went out and planted a tree today, but this is the human impact. That's the emotional impact. It's the mental health impact. It's the physical health impact, the happiness impact, all of it, because that measurement is really the measurement that, we've talked about. Roshanak and I have talked about the ripple effect that then gives you the greater impact all around you. It affects your families. It affects your children. They take that to school. And so that human impact measurement exponentially and very naturally ripples out so much further than any other measurement. And so I love that when you're looking at human consciousness, what that actual impact is at a larger scale. And it's almost like an energetic force around your entire being at that point. So I love that you've brought that up. Thank you. No, Roshanak, do you have anything? We're getting to I can't believe we've already, an hour is like
gone by so fast, and it's been so amazing.
Exactly.
We are now at the end of our show and a little bit over. So we are at the get off the couch moment. Jacqueline, would you like to explain what the get off the couch
absolutely.
moment is?
So Gordy, every show we have a get off the couch moment. So we would like, or we like to ask our guests, what is one thing today for the entrepreneurs, the business leaders that are listening to the show, that are going to listen to this show? What's the one thing? We know we can all get stuck on the couch sometimes, where it's just, I don't know what the next move is, or I don't even know how to get started. What would you say today? What's the one thing people can do today to get themselves off their couch and start moving towards the conscious business movement that we've been talking about today? So only one, you only get one.
We love to ask you easy questions, Gordy, Oh, I love it. He's really going deep.
I would just say to pose yourself a question, and the question to pose is, what is the question I need to ask myself? And just sit with that question, or I guess stand, since you don't want them sitting on the couch. Be present with that question, just with that question. What is the question I need to be asking myself? Or what is the question that wants to be asked? I think that's it. It's that simple. And that in itself, because, we're inherently curious, because the universe is inherently curious. Why? Because it is experiencing and expanding itself through each one of us. So if we just prompt our own software and hardware with a question that connects us a little bit to the universe inside of us, then it's going to open up some new possibilities, and you get to see what comes through. So that's what I'd say.
Love it. Thank you. And that's a very new action step that I've heard, and that's really, that's being with yourself, and I love that.
A more practical, pragmatic one would be, get a copy of my book, The New Millionaires.
Right. Yes, exactly.
This is
You're
exactly
about to go there.
Look at you. You're so present that you know what's coming next.
Exactly.
So, what do our viewers need to know about the newest Gordy Bal offerings and activities? How can they best connect with you? What do we need to know about getting more Gordy in our lives?
I love that.
I definitely recommend getting a copy of the book. You can go to newmillionairesPlaybook.com or go to
There's the link right there, newmillionairesPlaybook.com.
Yeah, and there's actually a really cool, once you get the book, in chapter 7, I talk about the art and science of manifesting. And so I've developed a 7-minute meditation, or an activation, where within 7 minutes, you're able to activate and begin to engineer synchronicities in your life. And this is, so it's tapping into both the science and the art of ancient wisdom, as well as emerging technologies. So I think that'll be really cool and fun. So speaking of an action step to do, get off your couches, but I guess you could just get off
the couch and get the book.
Yeah. do the meditation. And yeah, so, and you can go to ctr.com. I mean, that's been on there the whole time, or follow me on social. I'll be sharing more and more valuable
I know your
content.
Instagram is at Bal, B-A-L, Gordy, right?
Yeah, that's right. About Gordy. Yeah.
Perfect. Amazing. Thank you so much, Gordy, for being with us today. We so appreciate and value your time. We know how busy you are. And I'm going to look forward to coming over and seeing you on the island. It's going to be my trip. We live just a little bit across the water from each other here in Vancouver. So it's super exciting. So thank you so much for being with us. Dr. Roshanek, would you like to talk about next week before we pop out today?
Yes. So I just want to reiterate, Gordy, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time, your genius, your heart, and helping to guide us into living better for ourselves and for each other, and to create a beautiful future where all can thrive. Really appreciate you being here with us today, Gordy. And again, you can connect with Gordy at ctr.com, newmillionaireспlaybook.com, on Instagram at Gordy, etc. And if you have any questions, then contact him, and he's got great answers.
Obviously.
So, that's right. Jacqueline, I'm just going to go to Jacqueline for a minute. She's got her beautiful 365give.ca, where she's doing amazing work. Since we're talking about higher consciousness and how we can all do better, and we're talking about conscious business, we both have conscious work that we do. One of the things that we do is to work with Humanity's Team. We both sit on the board of advisors of Humanity's Team, which is a global nonprofit, #1 in transformational education. So there's a lot that's offered through Humanity's Team to help increase our levels of consciousness and to understand conscious business. Steve Farrell has a program right now on conscious business, and there are others as well, and for different aspects of our consciousness. Jacqueline, you have 365give.ca, and I know you've got Do One Give Day. You want to talk about that for 1 second?
You know what? We'll talk about it next show. We're still a few weeks away, but Do One Give Day is coming up. It's our one day, and we're going to ask everybody to get off the couch and
get off the couch.
One small act of love, one small act of giving as a collective community.
Which lifts us up, right?
Absolutely.
It makes us, it really connects to that wellness factor that we're talking about.
Absolutely.
So that's a beautiful thing to do. Also, she's got her TEDx talk, which has 8 million views and counting. How to be happy every day. It'll change the world. Is that right?
Yeah.
There you go. And I am, of course, the founder of Access to the Path. You can go to accesstothepath.com and find out some more. And we have also, and Gordy, we've been talking about this. You might be interested in checking us out next week too. We have Dr. Natalie Martinick joining us next week. And she's very active on Twitter and on Substack. She's got the most amazing articles on Substack. She calls herself the narcissism hacker, and she talks about the ways in which narcissistic traits creep into our everyday lives. And so it's a lot about interpersonal relationships and organizational culture and structure. So next week's topic is going to be transforming toxic terrain, mastering workplace dynamics, and it will be with Dr. Natalie Martinick. We're so excited to have her here. And if you have any questions about any of the things that we've already discussed, references to previous shows, then please, by all means, check out our playlist. We've got amazing guests every week. Gordy is a prime example, who come and talk about the things that really make a difference in all of our lives. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Thank you again, Gordy, for joining us. Namaste, and we hope to see you next week.